Hi, my name's Ryan Hughes. I'm the Artistic Director of Coventry Biennial, and it's a pleasure to be here in the Herbert, where we've got one of our major exhibitions as part of the third Coventry Biennial. The Biennial this year is spread over 6 venues across Coventry and Warwickshire, including of course here at the Herbert, but also Leamington Spa Art Gallery Museum, Rugby Art Gallery Museum, as well as Coventry Cathedral, the old grammar school on Hale Street, and a space that we've converted above the HMV Empire on Hertford Street. Across all of these exhibitions is a programme called Hyper Possible that is exploring the possibility of radical collaborative artistic practice in Coventry and Warwickshire. The programme starts with 3 moments that we've taken from the city's history that really prove this overabundance of possibility here in the area. Right here at the start of the exhibition at the Herbert, we've got a range of works by artists that were involved in the starting points that inform our whole biennial. We've got works by Art and Language, including this piece that's on loan from the British Council's collection. And we've also got this amazing drawing by Claudette Johnson that was acquired by the Herbert for their permanent collection and was made by Claudette during the COVID lockdowns. So it's really the most recent example of what those artists are doing right now. So we've commissioned Grace Doritu, who's a Kenyan British artist working around the world to make this new film installation called Black Beauty. In the work, there's a fashion model on film set making a new advert for a perfume when she's really confronted by all of the negative impacts of the fashion and the culture industry. She's really considering what's happening with Indigenous communities, with Black communities, within those sectors and within the wider world. The fashion model then has this sort of time-travelling, out-of-body experience where she finds herself then in a TV studio as a host for a sort of interview panel show, having a conversation with a philosopher, trying to really get to the bottom of these issues that are confronting her in her professional life. And I think this sort of approach is something that artists across the biennial are using. There's lots of time travel and really trying to get to the bottom of some of the big problems in the world today. So this installation's by Geoffrey Charles Henry Peacock, who are an artist duo that are really interested in trying to critique the structures of the art world. They're really critical of different power levels, but are also thinking about how artists can work together to create new kinds of artistic experiments. They've spent a long time working here in Coventry with students from the universities, and are in the process of working on a script for a new sitcom that is really sort of digging into ideas around art education and how we can come together to learn and make things. These photographs are by Vanley Burke, the godfather of Black British photography. The works are on loan from Birmingham Museum, but the images are from Vanley's time all across the West Midlands. We felt it was really important to have Vanley's work in the show here because he was really exploring what was happening in communities and neighbourhoods at the same time as those starting points that we were talking about informing all the works through the show. So it's just as important that we're looking at what's happening with real people in their day-to-day lives as well as just in the art sector. Mathew Krishna is a painter based in London, but he has really deep connections and relationships here in the West Midlands. We're working with him across a number of museums in the biennial to respond to their collections, to really pull out ideas that he's interested in. So here at the Herbert, he's found and selected this bust that Jacob Epstein made of Tagore, the Indian writer and social reformer. And Mathew's presented a pair of paintings that he made of Tagore, so really thinking about those relationships between his own interests and what we're seeing in local collections. Vanley Burke, whose work we saw earlier, is the godfather of Black British photography. Alan Van Widgerden is the godfather of Coventry photography. He's got a million negatives and shots of the city that he's taken over a number of decades. We've worked with him to pull out a really interesting series from his collection that's exploring squats and artists' houses that were here in the city. This series he shot in 1982 in a number of squats on Binley Road that were predominantly being lived in by art students. We think it's really interesting to be looking back at the city's history to see how artists were living and working, particularly at a time as we're all coming out of COVID lockdown and our relationships to our own homes has changed dramatically. Luke Routledge is a young artist based in Birmingham. His work imagines a new universe that has undergone many of the same issues that our society are sort of hurtling towards. In his work, we see though that society is beginning to rebuild and that solidarity and community is just becoming possible again. His works are all on motion sensors and the works will really respond to you as you walk through the space. And these works are also on display at Leamington Spa Art Gallery Museum, and smaller parts of his work are appearing in our other venues across the biennial as his characters are getting perhaps bored of this community group and wandering off to find another one. During this biennial, it's been a real pleasure for us to work with Stephen Friedman Gallery, who represent Leela Barbary and Denzel Forrester. Both of these artists feel really exciting to be shown here in the biennial for different reasons. Of course, Denzel's paintings are of basement nightclubs in London in the 80s. So really thinking here about that relationship to what was going on in the city at the time with the two-tone movement that of course was recently exhibited here at the Herbert as well. Leela's work is of course really different, and through the sculptural work here, she's exploring an imagined new queer African tribe that sort of responds to the built environment. And we see Leela using inner tubes to make dreadlocks, really referencing her time as a cycle courier working in New York. So the third Coventry Biennial runs until the 23rd of January 2022. Of course, we encourage you to explore the show here at the Herbert and at Leamington Spa Art Gallery Museum, Rugby Art Gallery Museum, Coventry Cathedral, the Old Grammar School, and at the HMV Empire on Hertford Street. All of the information can be found at coventrybiennial.com, and there's a little pink brochure that you can track down as well, which has a map so you can find all of those venues.